Alright, so based on everything that we've gone over and everything that I have still that I haven't gone over yet, and documents that I haven't even put on this presentation, I've come up with this deductive argument. Now, of course, this isn't where we're going to move into the future, but based on what we know right now, just mouse models and petri dishes, and a pilot study, a pilot clinical trial that had, I think, 9 patients with recurrent GBM. And we're not going to be, of course, we can use this for recurrent GBM patients, but the goal here is to be able to catch GBM early on and find some that aren't recurrent, because we don't want somebody that has a lot of roots. Not so much we don't want people to get to the point where they have a lot of stem cells already established to where when they have a recurrence, it's going to be harder to be able to get rid of that one. So the idea, of course, is to initiate or activate the CB1 receptor. Up here, top left, cannabinoids activating the CB1 receptor, creating ceramide, which stretches out the endoplasmic reticulum. And all this basically goes downscale or downstream to autophagy down here. And then autophagy, or I should say apoptosis, is downstream of autophagy. Now these come up here, the classical chemotherapeutic drugs, which is what I had, the TMZ, temozolomide, or Timidar, So temozolomide or Timidar. Timidar is what we know it as. Temozolomide is, of course, the pharmaceutical name. But anyway, so temozolomide, or the anti-cancer drug for brain cancer specifically. It's not intravenous, because intravenous has trouble passing the blood-brain barrier because it's not fatty like lipid substance. And cannabinoids are, so they can squeeze through the blood-brain barrier. Anyway, so what it's trying to do is do the exact same thing that cannabinoids are trying to do. The issue, though, is that this is chemotherapeutic, as if that's an oxymoron in itself. Chemo and therapeutic, chemical therapeutic. So anyway, coming down here, autophagy, apoptosis. Same thing over here. Autophagy, apoptosis, cancer cell death. So these are basically the same exact things. They're just showing this one that has the chemotherapy aspect. Then this is from another study that I've actually already gone over, or maybe have. And this just shows the CBRs, would be cannabinoid receptor. There's the same thing, ceramide. I don't see the endoplasmic reticulum, even though I know that that's how it gets it. But anyway, oh yes, ER stress on the endoplasmic reticulum leads to autophagy right there. Autophagy to apoptosis, apoptosis to tumor cell death. So this slide is basically just to show that we know the mechanisms here, and we know that there are also more mechanisms that we're going to learn about, especially with CBD. CBD essentially causes or creates autophagy and apoptosis, downregulates proliferation, cell cycle arrest, all those different types of things. It's an anti-angiogenic, and so we want to make sure that we study that. That's not included here. CBD does not activate the CB1 receptor, just THC does. Anyhow, a deductive argument is an argument where it doesn't matter if the premises are uncomfortable, so long as they're true. The argument is based on the points made, and if they are true, then the conclusion logically follows, whether we like it or not, whether it makes sense to us or not. The points are factual based on the premises, and then, like I said, the conclusion follows and it's true. So we know that whenever it really comes down to it, we don't have to get into marijuana or cannabis. We can really just look at how do we activate the CB1 receptor. We're just looking for agonists. An agonist is the opposite of an antagonist. So basically, any kind of agonist of the CB1 receptor would activate it and produce these mechanisms or produce this outcome within the inside of a cancer cell, specifically, selectively. It just so happens to be that cannabinoids also, as well as anandamide, activate the CB1 receptor. So the premise one is that cancer cells express a specific receptor on their cell walls called the CB1 receptor. In the parentheses, those cancers are what's listed on GW Pharmaceuticals anti-tumor effects of cannabinoids, I think. Either way, I'm going to have it on there. Phytocannabinoids in the treatment of cancer. That specific patent, I believe, has this list of prostate, breast, skin, glioma, lung, colon, Is that bone or lymph? Yes. So bone and lymph metastasis, that's leukemia or lymphoma. So premise 2, activation of the CB1 receptor by an agonist induces cell death in cancer cells by way of autophagy and apoptosis, which is exactly what we're talking about right here, autophagy and apoptosis. Coming back over here, premise 3, endogenous and exogenous cannabinoids are agonists and as such activate the CB1 receptor. So that's exactly what I just said a minute ago, endogenous anandamide, which is the chemical that induces apoptosis via the CB1 receptor. And let me see what else, anything else to say on that part. So premise 1 is factual. Premise 2 is factual. Premise 3 is factual. So we know that on the cancer cells, there's a CB1 receptor. Activation of the CB1 receptor causes autophagy and apoptosis. Endogenous and exogenous cannabinoids activate the CB1 receptor. Conclusion, cannabinoids, exogenous and or endogenous and exogenous, induce cancer cell death through the biochemical mechanisms given in premise 2, right above here, premise 2, and that's concluding. Oh, this has happened before. Why does it do this to me? We're gonna get back straight right here somewhere. We're gonna find this again. You can see how much data is right here. I'm not gonna back out of this video. So anyway, conclusion, cannabinoids, endogenous and exogenous, induce cancer cell death through the biochemical mechanisms given in premise 2, prostate, breast, skin, glioma, colon, lung, bone, or lymph metastasis. So we're not looking at this as in human clinical trials, but these are all what we have right now. This is the most recent data that we have. And so based on what we have, we can go premise 1, premise 2, premise 3, conclusion, cannabinoids treat cancer cells. Not just because it says this, but I would say this is because each one of these things that I do say are based on studies that represent in their own selves excuse me, that cannabinoids treat cancer cells. But this is an all the more effective argument to make because each one of these premises is true as of right now. And so using this, somebody's going to say, oh, well, we can't use that as something. So if somebody says that we can't use it, we need to use what we do have right here to further the science in human trials. And I'm just looking forward to someone taking this seriously, and that's why I make these deductive arguments and have pieced together other philosophical points, legal points, legal matters that I want to be able to address certain claims of the opposition, being the DEA, Department of Health and Human Services, National Institute of Cancer, National Institute of Health, and then of course Texas legislators. So anyway, I wanted to make this video. I'm chilling, just hanging out in the car. This is kind of like my studio, so to speak. That way I get some sound barrier. So I figured I'd play a little bit of hip hop in the background to give us a little bit of head bobbing while we're figuring this stuff out. And yeah, so have a good one. Share this one, of course. Get a screenshot. And got any questions, hit me up. And holla.